Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen. And this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
And welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name happens to be Don Neuen. I'd like to be the first to welcome you to the really big show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you one thing. You will find no one and no show like Cowboy Logic Radio. It is the zenith of radio broadcasting. This is the paramount of all talk radio. This is what all other talk radio show hosts model their show after. People study our archives so they become better talk show hosts. People like Mark Levin, Michael Savage, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, they all study our archives at Cowboy Logic Radio, found at cowboylogic.us. Now, I would like to start off because I'm Don Neuen, and I'd like to thank and bring attention to some of the great advertisers that are sponsoring me, that are dumping money into this programming so that I can live the type of lifestyle that I deserve and would like to live. Let me start with Black's Barbecue out of Austin, Texas. And all the great folks at Black's Barbecue, thank you for the thousands of dollars that you send me every month earmarked to my name.
Where?
In addition to that, I would like to thank Costa's Chocolates. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Costa's Chocolates out of someplace in Minnesota. I would like to thank them for the thousands of dollars and free candy that they send me with love and admiration.
Where?
In addition, I would like to thank a local advertiser. That would be Milano's Pizza, just north of LaGrange, Georgia. I would like to thank them for the 3-digit check that they send us every month, along with complimentary and unlimited pizza pies that they send delivered to our home almost 30 miles away from their restaurant.
Where?
Ladies and gentlemen, we could not sustain ourselves without the support of our advertisers.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
What do you mean?
The only time you get Black's Barbecue, Costa's Chocolates, and Milano's Pizza is when you pull out your credit card. And it's well worth it in all three cases.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
But you're trying very hard.
Yeah, I'm trying very hard, and I just wanted to let you guys know that none of those people advertise with us.
Hey, speaking of
But I do need to say, that was all fake news. Everything I said from the beginning, after I talked about all of the talk radio hosts that listen to our archives, everything after that was fake, and it was untrue. It's kind of something I'd like to have happen.
I think everything was fake after you said, I'm Don Neuen.
Well, maybe so, Donna, maybe so. But ladies and gentlemen, boy, have we got a big show for you. I promise you, it's going to be riveting.
I am going to date myself. As long as we're talking about products that you can consume, how about this? Remember this? If you've got the time, I've got the beer. Miller tastes too good to hurry through. Yes, Don has his arm up.
I don't remember that.
Yes, you do. It's Miller High Life beer, and it's Miller time at the White House as far as I'm concerned.
Am I funny?
That would be Stephen Miller.
That's why you were using that analogy.
I loved it.
That's why you were using that analgesic.
It's the guy with the big forehead, Stephen Miller.
Why do they call it Analgesic.
I have no idea. But I
Why
think
do they call it analogy?
I think the word of the day should be dopes. Because
What do
we'll
you mean?
start with Jim Acosta. Man, is he a dope, in my humble opinion. The first thing you tell
He
somebody...
sure looked like one last week, don't you think,
thanks
Donna?
to Steve Miller. Well, or Stephen Miller. Not to be confused with the singer
Fly
Stephen
like
Miller.
an eagle.
Yeah, no, that's the wrong
Not-
Steve
not
Miller.
that guy?
No. But I think the Democrats are starting to realize it might be a little bit of fake news, and the people are getting sick of it. I mean, like Michael Savage says, liberalism
He listens to our archives.
I know he does. After you listen to his. Liberalism is a mental disorder. That is such a great book, folks. Just such a great saying.
I would call that spot on accurate.
But the thing is, if you're the first thing they tell you when you're a quote unquote pundit or whatever, no, he's not. He's supposed to be a reporter, Jim Acosta, is no matter what you think, you don't let the audience know your personal feelings. I mean, these guys are just rabidly anti-Trump.
And
It's ridiculous.
who's the wonderful example from years gone by, a flaming liberal, but you never would have known it watching him at 6 o'clock at night every night?
That would be one Walter Cronkite.
Correct, Donna Fiducia. You win from Black's Barbecue in Austin, Texas, a butt.
No, don't. Can we continue on with the
Look, yes,
dopes
we can continue,
of the week?
but you have to admit something on the air here.
What?
I am an unbelievable spokesman for these three.
Yeah, you are, and it would be really nice if they'd send you a butt or two, but they haven't yet. We only got one. That one was a gift from a house guest that they sent us.
From a Cowboy Logic radio fan.
Yes.
Hey, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. What we think you ought to do is start sending us gifts.
Yeah, that would be our good friend, Brian Archambault. I always forget I just mess up his name all the time. But he's from Texas, and he spent...
B.A. I call him B.A.
He and his lovely wife...
That's right.
...spent a couple days here, right? And they were going to see their son, who's serving in the military. He's actually jumping out of airplanes and stuff.
And they rewarded me for spending quality time with them by sending us a brisket.
Oh, it was a brisket.
They sent us a brisket,
true.
Donna.
It was not a butt. But I bet Black's has good butts, too. Black's butts.
I'm not going anywhere with that, ladies and gentlemen. Back to you, Donna.
The dopes of the week. Let's continue. Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina. What is wrong with the Carolinas? Seriously,
I don't know, but
between
listen,
Lindsey Graham
I
and this
really
idiot
liked
Tom Tillis,
I really liked his songs back when he was a country artist, and his daughter Pam is really good.
It's Mel Tillis. Mel, this is Tom.
Who are you talking about?
Tom
Is that,
Tillis.
No,
with
that's
a TH.
It's
Thom.
Thom Tillis.
It's Thom Tillis.
What parent does that?
I don't know. Anyhow,
well, they don't say
says
Thomas. You don't call your son Thomas, do you?
No, I don't.
I'm going to the next time I see him.
But he spells his name T-O-M.
True.
Even though it's T-H-O-M-A-S.
But his real name is T-H-O-M-A-S.
But that should be Thomas. I guess. Anyhow, so Thom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, who has about a 20% approval rating.
Thommy.
That no one ever really even talked about
Thommy
before.
boy. I love that movie.
But this is where the mainstream media, they love the attention they're getting now by going against Trump. So this is like the big thing. So he says he's showing his...
Thom Tum. I knew that would make you laugh. I knew you wouldn't be able to keep going if I said that. Ladies and gentlemen, tell me I don't know Donna Fiducia.
So
Thom Tum.
Thom Tillis actually says he's showing his independence by backing Robert Mueller. And he's going against the president of his own party. Tillis is a Republican. Again, his approval rating is maybe in the 20s.
Maybe.
The other dope is Jeff Flake in Arizona. Same thing here. You know
what an appropriate last name. Thom Turman.
This is unbelievable. By the way, Tillis is up for re-election in 2020. Bet he'll love Trump by then, but until then, he's a rhino. Same with Lindsey Graham, by the way. So Jeff Flake in Arizona, whose approval rating is a stellar 18%.
Whoa!
He's never endorsed Donald Trump, so he's talking trash against Trump now. So he is the dummy of the week, the dope of the week as well. But the mainstream media, to him, is the doll of the week, okay? He wrote a book, by the way.
For Thom, what's Thom's last name?
Tillis.
Thom Tillis. Here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to send Thom Tillis a box of Costas chocolates. Now,
it's Costas chocolates.
Costas chocolates.
There you go.
And it's not going to cost us a penny because they're a sponsor of ours, by gosh. Not really, but we're working on that. But here's what we're going to do, Donna. We're going to jab our fingers in the bottom of each one of those pieces of chocolate and then mail it out to Thom Tillis.
No, I would keep those. I wouldn't send those out.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey, if you're in Arizona, please, everybody, Dr. Kelly Ward. Dr. Kelly Ward, Dr. Kelly Ward. Now, if Dr. Kelly Ward had beaten John McCain, if John McCain weren't another idiot from Arizona, we would have the discussion on Obamacare and have it start to be repealed in earnest instead of what these rhinos are doing. Anyhow, Flake wrote a book, and he's making the left-wing media rounds because he's talking out against Donald Trump as well. So this is so ridiculous. Again, Republicans, as usual, partake in a circular firing squad. Arizona, again, Dr. Kelly Ward, please, I hope she runs. Chances are she's going to. And we need to get rid of this idiot Flake because, you know, we're stuck with McCain.
How do you really feel about Thom and
But
Jeff?
I wish he'd retire, too. I can't stand any of them. Here's another dope. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal. This is classic.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me intro this. Ladies and gentlemen, a Vietnam War veteran.
Not. Blumenthal tweeted, the Trump bullying didn't work before, and it's not going to work now. Blumenthal said Mueller investigation needs to continue with tightening regulations so Trump can't fire Mueller, which, by the way, would be unconstitutional, but that's another story.
I wonder if Trump ever looks at Mueller and goes, Mueller, 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 Mueller. What movie is that from, Donna?
That would be Austin Powers.
And what was he doing?
Molly, Molly.
He was looking at the mole on somebody's face. It was a big mole, too.
So Trump tweets a bunch of stuff about Richard Blumenthal. Now, let me give you some background on Blumenthal. Blumenthal, when he was running, I guess, however many
You're talking about Dick,
ago,
right?
Yes, Dick Blumenthal. He actually said
T-H-I-K. Dick.
If you're from Connecticut, I guess that's how you say
Dick
it.
Blumenthal.
But the point is, Blumenthal said he was a Vietnam, served in Vietnam. He didn't. And that was a real big thing. But unfortunately, the jerk still got elected because Connecticut is just hopelessly liberal, just like most of the Northeast. So after a bunch of sparring tweets today.
Let's make this very well known and really, really cut the fat away from this. Connecticut voters elected a guy that lied about serving in Vietnam.
Yep.
Just let that sink in, people.
Yep.
And his name is Richard or the Dick Blumenthal.
Mr. Blumenthal, a Democrat, again, running for the United States Senate back then, never served in Vietnam. He obtained at least 5 military deferments from 1965 to 1970. Sounds like Bill Clinton, doesn't it?
It sounds like he served at the same time that others were actually serving.
Right. And he took repeated steps that enabled him to avoid going to war, according to records. So there was a bunch of sparring going on between Donald Trump and Richard Blumenthal because it was raining in New Jersey on Monday, and Trump is in New Jersey.
Couldn't play golf.
Why on earth are you vacating? This Trump golf course is about 10 miles away from where I used to live. I must admit, it is a nice area.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. We got into Barack Obama's rear end like a pack of hemorrhoids for 4 years, 5 years, however long we've been doing this show, because of how much golf he played, right? Mm-hmm. Why aren't we doing that with Trump?
Because Trump plays a lot less golf.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he has.
No, he doesn't. Trump, preside, brother. Don't play golf. You can play golf
He
in
goes to a lot
2020
of these outings.
when
He
they
doesn't
kick
play
your
as
butt
much golf.
because this is a dysfunctional situation going on and we lose everything in the 2020 election. I would say get back to work, stop with the golf, stop with anything that you can give the left ammo, because all they're doing is peeing gasoline on a fire.
Okay. By this time,
You don't agree with me.
No, I don't. Because
I know
by
you
this
don't.
time, Barack Obama had taken 5 vacations.
Well, I'm going to sleep in the barn
Michelle-
tonight.
Yeah, you are. Good thing I cleaned it, though. And Michelle had taken 3 separate vacations on her own. Remember, they rarely vacation together, which costs taxpayers a heck of a lot more
That
money.
is so weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Thumb.
I don't. So anyhow, Donald Trump tweets late yesterday afternoon. I think Senator Blumenthal should take a nice long vacation in Vietnam where he lied about his service so he can at least say he was there.
Ooh, scathing tweet by Donald Trump. I'd say that the Dick Blumenthal needs a little Bactine after that one, don't you think, Donna?
Can we talk about a couple more dopes?
Sure.
Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters, might as well throw them in too. Too many dopey statements lately to mention anything.
Well, wait a minute. Maxine Waters, we were talking about this the other night, Donna.
What is her IQ?
I was just going to, that's what I was going to ask you. Ladies and gentlemen, why don't you go to the
I guess
Cowboy
I'm
Logic
racist.
page
Yeah, I
and
know.
post what you think Maxine Waters' IQ is?
I'm sorry.
I'm
She
thinking
is an embarrassment.
single digits. What do you
If
think,
look-
Donna?
At least. If
7?
that, maybe.
4?
If you look at the enemies within Trevor Loudon's book,
Maxine Waters.
No, it's
Maybe it's
There's no
Maxine
TH in
Wathers.
anyhow. But the thing is, her rating as far as really serious communist ties to the communist
Is like
Party
about a
USA,
900.
Yeah, she's up there. She's way up there. Also, the narrative keeps changing. You notice this? First, of course, it keeps morphing. This anti-Trump stuff. It's like Lucy moving the football on Charlie Brown. First, it was illegal votes with Jill Stein, then Russian narrative, and then the Russians apparently didn't change any votes, but we can look at Donald Trump's son's actions and his financial dealings. Then you got all these other dopes that I aforementioned dopes talking about how they want Mueller to have all kinds of new powers. Nothing ever happens good when you go down this road. Because remember, with Ken Starr, they started looking at Whitewater with Bill Clinton and ended up with Monica Lewinsky. Just remember that. That's the biggie.
I'll remember that. And Dick Blumenthal, you remember that, you draft dodger guy.
And the other person that scares me is this assistant AG Rod Rosenstein. He was on with
Is
Chris
it Steen
Wallace.
or Stein?
I have no idea.
Let's pick
But
one.
here's the thing.
What do you think it should be?
He said Mueller
Donna,
needs...
What do you
Can
think
I
it should
do
be?
the news here for a change?
Yes. What
I
do you
have
think
no
it should
idea.
be?
Rosenstein, I guess.
Steen, like
Is it
Bruce
Stein?
Springsteen.
I don't know. Well, the thing is, he's saying that Mueller needs
I don't
to come
like
to him to
all
change it.
of Bruce Springsteen sound just like Rosenstein's songs that he plays on his
We're
ukulele.
going to actually be talking about that with Evan Sayet, who is
Why
a
do you think I brought it
conservative
up?
comedian. And he has written a piece a couple years ago I want to talk about because we love rock and roll, and he and I both love Bruce Springsteen. But his piece
And
that he wrote
Joan
a couple
Jett.
years ago.
You
Bruce-
like Joan Jett. She loves rock and roll.
Yep. And Bruce, oh my gosh, he had a piece called Bruce Springsteen.
Now, wait a
is
minute.
Conservative,
You need to tell the
which is pretty
listeners
damn
why
funny.
you just went.
Well, that's her song.
It was clever.
I love rock and roll.
I know.
Put another song in
Yeah.
the box, baby. Okay.
And who's the girl that plays guitar that Melissa Etheridge liked you?
Yeah, I like Melissa Etheridge.
Yeah, but she liked you.
Yeah, she did.
I mean, she had like
Literally.
the hots for you.
Yeah, well.
But we'll talk about that later, ladies and gentlemen. We've only got 4 more minutes here, and Donna didn't know I was going to bring that up.
That's not where I want to go right now. However, if you didn't know already, silencing all opposition voices on the right is what Media Matters Playbook is stating. And it was on the Drudge Report yesterday. 46 some odd pages. The left is orchestrating a tightly coordinated campaign to undermine and delegitimize President Trump, if you didn't notice this already, with the usual suspects that are very well funded, being
What are the 4 names? 4 names of them, Donna. Do you have them?
George Soros.
No, the organizations. Media Matters.
I don't have all four of them, but I
Crew.
have the guys. This Blue something or other.
Blue
David Brock,
Dress.
Tom Steyer, and George Soros. It's
all
a 49-page
the big left-wing
document.
money guys,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen.
And that's really scary. It's really scary because they are trying to derail him. And little by little, the rhinos that always shoot themselves in the foot, the aforementioned dopes, are continuing it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 3 more minutes of this madness before we get serious and put on our game faces and get down to business. So the next 3 minutes is brought to you by Milano's Pizza. This is the Milano's Pizza 3-minute drill. Back to you, Donna.
All right, remember Comey testified that there were no notes about the Clinton-Lynch tarmac meeting? Turns out there were 413 pages. That was
And
kept
why
at least
didn't they
by
come
the
up in the
DOJ
first
last
FOIA
Friday.
request?
I have no idea.
Yes, you do.
I don't understand. You explain
Yes,
it.
you do. Oh, I'll do it very quickly.
Okay.
It's because they did a FOIA request under her name. And the problem was...
That's splitting hairs.
They did the request under that. And the problem was that they did not ask for... What's her grandmother's name?
She uses her mother's pseudonym.
Grandmother.
Elizabeth Carlisle.
Yeah.
That's what she
Now, this
uses
is something
as a
that is
pseudonym.
practiced commonly in the Obama administration.
Yeah, but how
It
does-
may have been practiced in the Bush administration. We don't know
But
or
how do
care.
the people know to ask for that?
They
I mean, that's
didn't.
bull
That's
crap.
the point.
I'm sorry. Give
Yeah.
me a break. So Comey lied, or technically he didn't lie. Is that the deal? Because they didn't ask for Elizabeth Carlisle's emails. They asked for Loretta Lynch's emails.
Here's
Come
another.
on.
Here's the thing. They needed to go to the DOJ about that in the first place, not the FBI.
Well, and I'm sure
You see how that
Loretta
works?
Lynch isn't going to give her own emails away. By the way, Dinesh D'Souza has a new book out, The Big Lie. He was on with Matt Locke and Gavin Mitchell, the conservative cartel, last night. Dinesh said it's going to be a movie next year. I wonder if our friend Jerry Mullen's going to produce that one,
I'd say
just like he
Jerry
did with the
Mullen
other
will
two.
have a lot to do with that film.
We'll have to give Jerry a call and see, because we know all the big guys.
All right, we're going into the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. 1 minute and 15 seconds. This 1 minute and 15 seconds is brought to us by Black's Barbecue.
Hey, did you know 150 Democrats in Florida are suing the DNC and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz for fraud in skewing the party's primaries to benefit Hillary Rodham Clinton? I bet you didn't. They're not
Debbie
this is in
Wasserman
South
Schultz.
Florida. But these people are filing suit on behalf of the Bernie Sanders supporters. Hey, at least they're trying to do the right thing.
You know, I really liked Debbie Wasserman Schultz when she played in the band Twisted Sister years ago. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to go to break.
But
I
this
want to thank
lawsuit was filed last
thank our affiliates, WDDQ Talk 92.1 FM, WJHC Talk 107.5 FM, WLBB News Talk 1330 and 106.3, and our digital flagship, Talk America Radio, found at talkamericaradio.us. Donna Fiducia, who do we have coming up?
We are going to be talking to the aforementioned Evan Sayet, conservative comedian. Bruce Springsteen is a conservative, according to him. And then at the top of the hour, just a wonderful person named KAROLYN Smith. You love pets, you're going to love hearing her story. She's an Iraqi vet, and she went to go save a cat. The cat ended up saving her. It's a great story. Sophia, the three-legged cat. KAROLYN Smith coming up at the top of the hour. Evan Sayet right after this break on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance. Yes, when cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hi, this is Denise Simon, the host of the Denise Simon Experience. I feel compelled to tell you people that Don Neuen is my favorite talk radio host, period. Not Mark Levin, not Rush Limbaugh. I can't do this.
Do it, Denise. Read it. Read it, Denise.
Not Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham, but yep, Don Neuen. Cowboy Logic Radio is featuring the ever-stellar, highly gifted Don Neuen, right here on Talk America Radio.
This is Don Neuen with Cowboy Logic Radio. On behalf of my beautiful co-host, Donna Fiducia, I'd like to express my gratitude to Denise Simon for those kind words. I don't think I could have done it better if I would have written that myself. Cowboy Logic Radio, every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Talk America Radio.
Hi, this is Michelle Malkin from CRTV.com, and you're listening to Talk America Radio.
Hey, everybody, they're back on again.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glares. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name remains Don Neuen, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the second segment of Cowboy Logic Radio. I think you all will admit that tonight has been absolutely riveting thus far, don't you think, Donna?
When is it not?
It's always riveting.
This is true.
That's right.
And it has been a while since we've had Evan SAYET on, so Evan has no idea what the heck you were just doing. But Evan, it's because Don is married to a New York Italian. He never gets a word in edgewise. I should say New York and part Jewish Italian.
New Jersey Italian.
Well, yeah, but close enough to New York. Never gets a word in edgewise, so he's taken to radio puking, blurting out his name at the beginning of every segment, because then after that, he never gets heard from.
That's right, Donna. That way I'm able to remind the listeners who I am.
This is true.
Evan, welcome to the big show. Donna, give him the big intro that you always do.
We are talking about one Evan SAYET, a conservative comedian, also from New York, but then moved out to L.A., the bastion of liberalness and insanity. And Evan, I have no idea how you are a conservative comedian, but you really are hilarious. You're the author of The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. I would say that after this Trump election, that needs updating, Evan.
Oh, it absolutely needs updating, and it's being updated. But let me be clear, because people sometimes take exception when the title is How the Modern Liberal Thinks. They say because they don't think. And that is true. But Don, and see how I got you in there, Don? There's thinking behind their rejection of rational thought. The modern liberal thinks that thinking is an act of bigotry. And therefore, it's not that they are incapable of it. There's no brain damage. It's they reject the act of thinking because they think that thinking is an act of bigotry.
Well, I had to think about that.
That is deep.
I had to think about that.
And ladies and gentlemen, I would like each and every one of you to take notice that Evan mentioned my name.
And you are?
Don Neuen.
There you go. Evan, are you amazed at the emphatic, almost mentally disordered leftist media at this point?
Actually, I'm not. I mean, we saw it begin after the 2000 election because they were so sure that they were going to begin their 1,000-year left. Mm-hmm. That when Bush became president, they did everything they could to try to undermine him and weaken him. But when it was now Hillary, all right, this was supposed to be a coronation. This was supposed to be a continuation of Obama's destruction of Western civilization for the next almost decade. And for her to have been defeated by this first-time neophyte who is not the most polished politician, not the most polished speaker, they had no choice. Look, they had two options at this moment. They could go high and believe that he would destroy himself, but he wasn't going to. So their only other option was to double down on their attacks, on their vitriol, on their efforts really for what is a slow-motion coup.
Yeah, it really does. And I've said that to a lot of my liberal friends who are dwindling in numbers recently, I'll be honest with you, that it started back in 2000 because they just can't adhere to an election. They refuse when it's not what they want. They just throw a temper tantrum, just like little kids in the kindergarten of Eden.
Yep, no, that's right. That's exactly why it's called the kindergarten of Eden. And look, they have two problems. One, they cannot thoughtfully, rationally, factually articulate a reason to vote for them. If you notice, the only thing that they have is vote for us because otherwise the other side is Hitler.
Yeah,
the other
racist.
side is Nazis. The other side are fascists. There is absolutely no affirmative argument for supporting the Democratic Party. You can't point to one of their cities where it works. You can't point to one of their states where it works. You can't point to a school system where it works. You can't point to any place around the globe where leftism, whether it was National Socialism, whether it was communism, whether it's the socialism you find in Venezuela, there is absolutely no affirmative argument for liberalism. So all they can use is demagoguery, and when that doesn't work, they have to double down on their demagoguery, and at that point, it just becomes more and more and more obvious how ludicrous their claims are.
You know,
why do you think that anybody even remains affiliated with a Democrat or a socialist or a Marxist party when there is absolutely no proof in the history of mankind that it ever has worked?
They certainly won't bring up Venezuela.
Well, there are two reasons for it. One, again, it's the demagoguery. It's, of course we failed you. Of course your cities are violent, economic black holes, but the other side is going to put you into slavery. The other side is are white supremacists. They're Hitlers. They're fascists. So of course we're going to destroy your cities, but they are going to enslave you. That's the only argument that they have. But you also have to look at who votes Democrat, and the conventional wisdom, because the liberals create the conventional wisdom. They own the media, they own the schools, they own the entertainment industry, and so they get to invent and then promulgate what is the conventional wisdom. But that conventional wisdom is that the Democrats are the party of the working people, and the Republicans are the party of the rich. Well, guys, and Don in particular, because I want to mention your name.
Thank you, Evan.
The Democrats are the party of the rich, the very rich, the very, very rich, and the very, very, very rich. In fact, 9 out of the 10 uber wealthy zip codes in America, places like Nob Hill in San Francisco and Bel Air in Los Angeles and Sutton Place in New York and Hyannisport and Cape Cod in Massachusetts, 9 out of the 10 uber wealthy zip codes in America are the Democratic Party. Overwhelmingly not only Democrat, but leftist. And the reality is they're a party of people who are so rich that they can't be hurt, at least in their own thinking, and so poor that they benefit from the welfare checks. The working people of America are the ones who end up being, I don't know how comfortable you are with the word screwed on the radio, but it's the working people, and that's who came out in this election. Mm-hmm. We're the working people who said enough is enough.
They
there's a hierarchy.
To admit it. Yeah. They're the working people, middle America. They refuse to admit it. I'm telling you, my socialist friends are saying, oh, we have to change our way of thinking now for a couple thousand coal miners in West Virginia. To which I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, why should we have to bankroll wind and solar? Does Solyndra ring a bell? If they want to work in the free market, let them give it a try without taxpayer dollars. And how many of those people are paying more for health care they don't want or need than their mortgages every month? People on the East and West Coast don't see that.
Honestly, God, I know this sounds funny, but I don't remember if it was Margaret Thatcher or me who said that socialism is the best form of government ever devised for one generation. And the reason is because that one generation steals from everybody else. And so this one generation in Europe and this one generation in America has stolen every penny from their parents' retirement fund. There's not a nickel left in Social Security because they stole it all. Right? They stole every penny they could from their children. They're leaving their children $20 trillion in debt to pay for their lifestyle. The entire scheme behind Obamacare is to steal from your grandchildren, to force them to pay exorbitant rates for health insurance they don't need, not just catastrophic, for God forbid something should happen, but for transgender operations, for hormone replacement treatments. You're forcing them, you're forcing young boys, 20-year-old kids, to buy health insurance with reproductive insurance. So basically, they're stealing from their grandchildren to pay for their medical care. They stole from their parents. They stole from their grandchildren. But now there's nothing left to steal.
Yep. Evan, SAYET, you are a conservative comedian, but you and I have often talked about a person we love to hate, but we love him, and that is Bruce Springsteen. Because you are a huge rock and roller, and my roots are in rock and roll radio, New York City at WNEW-FM. But when we met you at CPAC, I guess it was a couple of years ago, you said you were in a quandary because your girlfriend's never seen Springsteen, and you didn't want to give him the business because it's not like he needs the money, but you want her to see Springsteen. Whatever happened there?
Yeah, I took her to see Springsteen, and what was funny about it, it was something like the 35th anniversary of the release of the River Tour.
Wow,
and
I
so
feel old.
He played both albums. He played the double album. He sang it, performed it in order, the entire double album. And what was funny was periodically he would stop between songs and he would describe what he was thinking when he wrote a particular number. And everything that he said was conservative. Everything that he said. And the first piece that I ever wrote for Breitbart, Andrew asked me to write for the premiere edition, I don't know what you call it on the internet, for the premiere edition of Big Hollywood. And the piece I wrote was Springsteen is a Republican.
Explain that. I think that's great. Not to mention that he gets a king's ransom for doing what comes naturally.
Yes, and look, in his day-to-day life, he lives as a conservative. He's married to the same woman now for 30-something years. He takes his children to church. He attends church. He's a believer. So many of his songs, if you listen to them, they are Catholic in their values. Mm-hmm. Very early in his career, in the song Badlands, he's trying to figure out what's going to make him happy. He's a young man just starting down the road of life, Thunder Road, and he's trying to figure out what's going to make him happy. And he says, well, maybe I'll just make a lot of money. And he says, well, no, it can't be that because the poor man wants to be rich, the rich man wants to be king.
And the king ain't satisfied till he rules everything. What a great
right, so it
line.
It can't be the money, so maybe I'll just throw myself into my work. But he says, no, work and eat the wheel, you get your back burned. And ultimately what he decides, what's going to make him happy? I believe in the love that you gave me. I believe in the faith that can save me.
Yep.
The micro and the macro, having somebody in your life who you love, a marriage, and belief in God. That is conservative.
And he's bringing his son, I believe, is a firefighter, one of them. His daughter is one of the best horseback riders in the country, and I'm so jealous. But then again, Mr. Working Man did pay $3 million for a horse for her, so I guess we all could ride pretty good if we had a $3 million horse. But that's another story. But Patty Scialfa actually goes around, she's a horse show mom. She goes around to all the shows with her daughter, and which is exactly what I would have done had I had a daughter. My sons, unfortunately, didn't ride. But again, like you say,
but she didn't put the daughter.
Exactly.
Right, the daughter is not in the hands of child care. Right. Is not being raised by child welfare programs. She's not being dumped off at the school and picked up by the nanny. I mean, so in his personal life, and Dennis Prager has such a great line about supposed liberals who live conservative lives. If only they would preach what they practice.
Yeah.
Because Springsteen, and then again, forget his personal life, go to his music, go to his lyrics, and time again, he talks about responsibility, he talks about redemption, he talks about, he even has songs about baptism, where he takes the baby down to the river.
The river, it's kind of cleansing yourself. Essentially.
Right, the river, but I was also thinking about Spare Parts and Broken Hearts, where this young girl gets pregnant, she decides to keep the kid, not have an abortion. She's sort of broken because she's all alone and she wants to go out to the party. She's still young, and she reads about this woman who just took her baby down to the river and just let the baby go, and the river just took the baby away and obviously killed it. And she goes down and she thinks about that, and when she gets to the river, nope, she's born again. And she goes home and she takes practical action, and these are things you see in Springsteen's lyrics all of the time. You see that there are choices to be made. It's not utopia. He doesn't say, let's hold on to 16 as long as you can, like John Cougar Mellencamp does. He doesn't dream about the endless summer like the Beach Boys do. In fact, quite the opposite. He says, for me, the boardwalk life is through. And there's this one song that he has that the lyric just blows my mind. He says, once I spent my life playing tough guy scenes. I was living in a world of childish dreams. One day those childish dreams must end to become a man and grow up to dream again. You don't lose your dreams by becoming an adult. What you have are real-world adult dreams, and they're even better than the childhood fantasies of liberalism.
Yeah, he did live his dream, though, and he does get a king's ransom for doing what comes naturally. But on the hypocrisy side, he, and I know this personally, as well as just about all the big money people that live in New Jersey, have tons of armed security. Many of them have walls around their houses, although Springsteen's house is way set back, so I can't see that.
But the great hypocrisy that I take from Springsteen's, Colt Neck, New Jersey, that he's in.
Colt's Neck, yeah.
Colt's Neck. There's actually just an obscure law on the books that says if you grow a certain kind of tomato on your property, you get a tax deduction. And so he has his gardeners grow this so he can get out of paying local taxes, which means that somebody else has to pay them.
Well, let me tell you something. The same with John Bon Jovi. He grows stuff on his little, mansion, too, which looks like Buckingham Palace. But the thing is, in that town, and I got to tell you, I lived in that town, my taxes were over $20,000 a year, and I didn't have anything near 300 and 400 acres that Bruce Springsteen had. I had an acre and a half.
Which is why the Democratic Party is the party of the rich, the very rich, the very, very rich, and the very, very, very rich, and the poor, who, by the way, are there basically to service the rich and the very rich and the very, very rich. You know, one of the great divides in America is not red state, blue state, or north, south, or it really is city, not city. Yep. So why would a city be leftist? And the answer is this: because the city is economically bipolar. In the cities themselves, in Manhattan, you have the very, very, very rich who can afford to live on the Upper East Side or on Central Park South. And then you have the very poor who live in Harlem, who live in the Bronx, their job is to be far enough away from the rich white liberals that the rich white liberals know they won't come visiting at night, but close enough that they can come by and raise their children during the day.
How about L.A.? You're seeing shanty towns going up everywhere. Being a sanctuary city and state, and it's a mess there because of the Great Divide, really.
Yeah, I mean, and now there's a brand new gas tax that's going to add something like 80 cents a gallon. Now, who's that going to affect? Is that going to affect Leonardo DiCaprio? Is he going to stop flying his private jets because gas has gone up 80 cents a gallon? Is he going to stop racing his Maserati down Sunset Boulevard? No. Who's it going to hurt? It's going to hurt the guy who's barely getting by, for whom another $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 a year in gas taxes are enough to break them. You know, so when the Democrats say they care about the working people or about the poor, or when they yell tax cuts for the rich, well, this is a tax increase for the poor.
Yeah, because that's all it does. And the same with Obamacare. Let's talk about your latest on townhall.com. Again, you can find him at Evan Sayet, SAYET, evansayet.com, right? That's where everybody can find your stuff?
Yep.
Okay, and you are the author of The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. But on your latest town hall writing, basically you're talking about how the right has to get tougher, essentially.
Yep, absolutely. And this article was a phenomenon. An article on townhall.com, which is a highly respected, wonderful place where Dennis Prager and Jonah Goldberg and publish. A typical piece there might get 1,000 shares. It might get 2,000 shares. This is up to 65,000 shares because it hit a chord with people, and it's called He Fights. And so many of my Never Trumper fans and friends, as well as my friends on the left, would say to me, doesn't Trump's lack of decorum, don't his tweets bother you? Doesn't some of the things he does seem beneath the dignity of the office? And so I wrote this piece answering them. And the answer is this: we have tried dignity. There was nobody more quietly dignified than George W. Bush, who took the outrageous slanders and the lies of the left, and probably because of his deep religious convictions, simply accepted them, put it in God's hands, and did not fight back, did not lower himself to their level, simply accepted the slanders. Right? We tried collegiality. Who in the world could want to be more collegial than John McCain? We tried propriety. Who in the world could be a nicer gentleman than Mitt Romney.
Mm-hmm.
And yet none of these things work for a very simple reason, because while we're being collegial, while we're being dignified, while we're being statesmanlike, while we're being proper, the other side is fighting by Solowinsky rules and the law of the Chicago streets. They have been at war. I mean, Obama himself declared that this is a knife fight, and even implored his followers to bring guns. And we've been fighting this as if we're gentlemen in a boxing ring, following the rules of propriety. And so the line that I really like from the piece, I think that sums it up, is that Donald Trump is the first wartime president in America's culture war. And you accept things in wartime that you don't accept in peacetime. And the examples I gave was during the Civil War, Ulysses Grant was supposedly a drunk, and yet Abraham Lincoln did not fire him, did not strip him of rank. In fact, and what he said was, I cannot spare this man. He fights.
Yeah.
You know, had it been peacetime and had Lincoln stripped him of rank because of conduct unbecoming or whatever, then the Democrats would probably still be holding their slaves. You know, during World War II, Patton was a vulgar son of a bitch. During peacetime, Roosevelt or Truman might have stripped him of rank. But had they done that during war, the Nazis would just be beginning their 1,000-year Reich.
We'd be speaking German for sure. Evan Sayet.
Yep.
No, we only have a couple minutes left. You can find him again, folks, at Evan Sayet, SAYET.com. I just love the fact, though, of what you're saying that, you know, and of course, I held my nose, but I voted for John McCain. And then you have him coming back, the Benedict Arnold that he is, I'm sorry, saying things during the campaign. And I understand Trump did get nasty about John McCain, but saying things like, oh, he couldn't believe the language that Donald Trump said. Are you kidding me? You know, right. John McCain is a POW in Vietnam. He hasn't heard that language before. He's been in the Senate for a gazillion years. And then he comes back and, as I say, the Republicans always partake in a circular firing squad. Latest being overturning Obamacare.
Yeah, and look, John McCain is stuck in another time. And there was a time when collegiality and propriety were possible. It was possible for Ronald Reagan to wholeheartedly and vociferously go at it with Tip O'Neill and then go out for a beer afterwards. Mm-hmm. But the problem was that back then, we had a shared ideology. The left and the right both agreed that America was exceptional, that communism was evil. I mean, John F. Kennedy started the Vietnam War, at least our participation in it. All right? It was then a difference in policy, not in ideology. Since then, the left, though, has become an enemy of America. They believe America is not exceptionally good, but exceptionally evil. They are racists beyond. They are the epitome of racists. They believe that. As I was just with Dennis Prager this weekend, and he rightly points out that not since Hitler, not since Nazi Germany, has there been an ideology as race-based as is modern liberalism.
Yeah, that's really true. Well, Evan Sayet, I'd like to just talk about. I got to
let everybody know why I kept quiet through all that.
And what else is new?
Don, are you still here?
Yeah, because I've got about 30 seconds that I'm going to be able to interject something. I think Springsteen, this will offend both of you. I think he is way overrated. I have absolutely no interest in ever attending one of his concerts because he doesn't see the same political ideology that I do. And every one of his songs, including the late, great Clarence Clemens solos, sound exactly the same to me.
Because Don is a musician.
And I'm going to do a Clarence Clemens. I'm going to do a Clarence Clemens solo real quick. That's his solo.
Don, you are completely wrong across the board, 180 degrees. There's a reason that if you Google, I'm sorry, let's go to Amazon instead. If you go to Amazon and look up any recording artist in modern history, rock and roll history, you will find 2, 3, 4 books perhaps on Elton John, Billy Joel, Neil Diamond, the Beatles. You'll find a few more on the Beatles. But almost all of them are biographies. If you go to Amazon for Springsteen, you'll find 50 or 70 books. 65 of them are interpreting his lyrics.
Now, that I will agree with you on. Evan, I will agree with you on. But I am a bass player, and I never listen to lyrics. When I play in bands, I could care less what the lead singer is saying.
All right,
All
so
I
you
care
and
about
have this is the difference that I have with my friend Seth Swirsky, who is just a incredibly successful singer-songwriter, and he cares about the music, and I care about the lyrics. So he's a Beatles nutcase, and I'm a Springsteen nutcase.
Yeah, but I love John
and the
Lennon,
thing
too.
is, I respect the fact that both you and Donna adore Bruce Springsteen and his music, or I should say, adore his music. I respect that.
Lyrics.
And Max Weinberg, great drummer.
Love Max.
The whole band, great musicians. And Bruce Springsteen, absolutely a one of the best lyricists and storytellers that ever has hit music.
But you
I
have to
agree
see
with
him
you on
live.
that.
Do we have how much time do we have, Donna? How much time do we have?
We're already out of time. I'm over a minute.
Go ahead real quick.
Okay. All right. Just very. You can cut this out if you want to. But between us, all right. The song Factory. It says, early in the morning, factory whistle blows. Man rises from bed and puts on his clothes. Don, where are we if there's a factory whistle blowing? Geographically, where are we?
Pennsylvania.
All right, we're somewhere in the Rust Belt. Pennsylvania's great.
Steel
All right,
town.
what time is it? What time in the morning is it if the factory whistles first?
7 a.m.
Up?
7 a.m.
All right, 7 a.m. What color is the sky in Sandusky, Ohio at 7 a.m.?
Gray.
Bio green.
Okay. All right, man rises from bed and puts on his clothes. Where are his clothes?
Probably in a pile on the floor.
Okay, I see it over the back of a chair, but we see the same thing. Yep. What are his clothes? Are they a three-piece suit? Is it what are his clothes?
His clothes are tattered denim.
Okay, so inside of 6 words, we have a geographical location. We know the time of day. We know the color of the sky. We know what his clothes are. We know where his clothes are. That's great poetry.
Yep.
I am not disputing that. I am not disputing it at all. And when Donna makes me listen, when we drive from Atlanta to New Jersey and we have a rental car that has XM radio and I have to listen to the Bruce Springsteen channel for 900 frickin' miles.
I know. My girlfriend goes through it.
There is one thing that I appreciate. His lyrics. Musically, his songs all sound the same, which forces the listener to enjoy his stellar lyrics. Donna, we got to go to break. Donna, who's coming up?
Closing down the textile mill across the railroad tracks for those city jobs. They're going, boy, and they ain't coming back. All right, Evan Sayet. Love you so much because, man, I could talk about Springsteen for the next 4 hours, even though, according to you, he is a conservative. I don't know. He doesn't live that life, unfortunately. Evan Sayet, conservative comedian, author of The Kindergarten of Eden, How the Modern Liberal Thinks. Find him at evansayet, SAYET.com. Evan, thanks so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Donna, I love you, but Don, I love you more.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Donna, who do we have coming up
next? We're going to be talking to KAROLYN Smith. She is a Iraqi war veteran, and she has just a wonderful story to tell. It's coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen. And this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don.
And I'm Don Neuen, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big radio show, Cowboy Logic Radio. This happens to be, Donna, I have done the research, the #1 radio show on planet Earth. Would you like to know why?
Why?
Me.
Oh, okay.
It's all about me.
You're so humble.
I am humble.
You really are.
And you know where I got how to be this humble?
No.
From my dad. Don Neuen.
That would be Don Neuen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you all will agree that tonight's show has been absolutely riveting thus far.
Yes, and it's going to get more riveting.
This is an awesome hour. We're going to devote this entire hour to one guest. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we rarely do unless we have Michael Cutler on. And we just do that because we don't ever get to talk.
That's because Mike just takes over.
That's right. It's his show at that point.
This is true.
Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be talking to a United States hero, a military veteran that has an unbelievably interesting story to tell. And I'm going to leave it at that,
uplifting
Donna.
Story.
Yeah.
I would call it an uplifting story. So, without further ado, why don't we kind of let her sort of introduce herself, and then we'll come back afterwards. And let me tell you something, folks. This one tugs at the heartstrings, if nothing else.
My father's a Vietnam veteran. My grandfathers are all World War II veterans. And as a child, I had always wanted to be in the military. I was 29 and actually enlisted right after 9/11. April 15th, 2005, after a series of roadside bombs, one hit us. I herniated all my lower discs in my back and burned a lung and blew an ear and got knocked out and suffered a bit. I spent 4.5, 5 years in the hospital and medical, going through some pretty serious rehab, and still am. I was looking to get a kitten, and a friend of mine here locally said I should look at the San Diego Humane Society. I stopped by and found 2 kittens that I couldn't help but rescue. When I saw Sophia, she was going through rehab at the time. The backstory behind her was her umbilical cord wrapped around her foot, and she went through an amputation here at the Humane Society. And I thought, who better to raise a disabled kitten than a disabled veteran? It's interesting, I came to the shelter to save a cat. But she really saved me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the voice of Sergeant KAROLYN Smith, U.S. Army combat wounded veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Goes to an animal shelter and finds a cat that she rescues that really ends up rescuing her. Let me do a formal introduction. KAROLYN Smith is a turret gunner, combat deployed, served in Iraq from 2002 to 2005, and then in the reserves until 2014. She's from San Diego with a long family military history. She always knew she would serve. And then after 9/11, well, she did sign up. Like so many, to me, heroes did. 9/11 really spurred the cream of the crop of this country to go and serve. And she was wounded by an IED from about 10 feet away. Her hearing was injured, back injuries. She had burned sinuses and lungs. This was the last mission before apparently going back to Germany. She's been, again, having problems ever since. Again, being the daughter and granddaughter of veterans, she wanted to serve. And this is something that she'll be struggling with for the rest of her life. And then she goes to the San Diego Humane Society, finds this 3-legged cat and an amputee, And both of them, I feel, working together, but she says that cat basically saved her. KAROLYN Smith, welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Good morning. It's such an honor to hang out with you two interesting, fabulous people this morning.
You know, I should mention...
I like the word, before we get into this, I like the word interesting and fabulous.
No, he's not.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Is there any way for you to kill the mood here?
No, because we're going to get into this, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have this sergeant with us for the entire rest of the show. And Donna and I had the pleasure of being able to listen to her interview with Denise Simon on the Denise Simon Experience a couple of weeks ago. And Denise, because of the schedule that she had, only was able to devote one segment to KAROLYN. And Denise called me up and said, you guys have to have this gal on. This story is amazing, and you got to figure out a way to devote an entire hour to her. And that's exactly what we're doing. So, Sergeant, again, welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio. Let's get started with talking about a very unique position in the world of the military that you held because of the microscopic fraction of a percent of women that actually hold that position.
So, again, thanks for having me on. I enlisted right after 9/11. I am born and raised here in San Diego, and went into the delayed entry because everybody, like you were saying, everybody was trying to get in the military at the time. Went active duty in 2003 out in Germany, deployed to Iraq in 2004. And for me, a big backstory is that I was actually a pro-am athlete. And I raced on the velodrome, which 99% of your listeners will probably not know what that is.
Is that the
velodrome is European.
The bike tracks that are like...
Yes.
Like almost 90 degrees straight up.
How did you know that, Donna?
How do you stay on the... I don't know. I just knew it. Somehow I remembered it from something.
Because she's the star. Anyway, so for 14 years, I raced all over the United States. I ended up doing my first Olympic trials when I was 19. I moved down to Australia when I was 21, so I was pretty serious about it.
It's like some centrifugal force that holds you on those tracks, isn't it?
It is. It is speed, power, a very tactical sport, and kudos to you for knowing what it actually is, because most people don't. And, you know, I came to a point in my life where track cycling is phenomenal, but there is no forward movement financially with it. I had friends that had already won Olympic medals and world titles, and they were working a 9-to-5 job, which is totally fine for them, but that wasn't really how I saw things. And so when 9/11 came around, that was my first real pivot for life, and had made a choice. I had a boyfriend at the time, and he said, well, I don't want to date a woman in the military. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to go to Europe. You can go to Europe with me, hang out in Europe. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. So ended a relationship, and I was at the very tender age of 29, that's when I enlisted in the Army.
Yeah, that was late.
When I went, it was late, and you know, when I got to basic training, they'd say, you know, the privates, I was a private too, they would say, so what, you couldn't make it in the real world? I'm like, dude, I have a fan club. Like, do you know who I am? And that didn't work out so well. But because I was so far advanced of everybody else, I actually became sort of a pseudo mentor. You know, when the 19-year-olds were getting yelled at and breaking down, you know, my position was, hey, look, don't listen to the decibel, listen to the information of what they're trying to tell you.
That's interesting. And, so you were in really good shape because of your biking and serious biker training, even compared to kids that were much younger than you.
Oh, phenomenal shape. The only thing that was pretty difficult for me was running because sprinting and running are sort of two different mechanisms. And so I struggled a little bit on that, but I had maxed all of my tests out, right? So I learned about weapon systems when I was a kid because my dad's a Vietnam veteran. I learned about land navigation because we lived right off a national trail here in San Diego and went hiking all the time, and then being an athlete. So I was actually top 2% of my class which allowed me into the fast track program that the Army has, and I got additional skill training that everybody else didn't get. And one of them, which will come up later, is personal security detachments, and that'll come up, after active service. And so, for me, it was easy to me. I mean, there were some parts that were not all that thrilling, but easy breeze, went through, got to my unit. So I was with the 127th Military Police Company, which is the 18th MP Brigade. It's the most historic MP brigade in the Military Police Corps because they were the first MPs in Vietnam.
Oh,
wow!
So I was now surrounded by a whole platoon of overachievers, which I fit right in, right? Because I was always kind of an overachiever that way. So it was an easy transition, except for, shenanigans and stuff. I always ended up being the DD because I was the older responsible one.
Well, there's also a very interesting fact that I want to let the listeners know about Sergeant KAROLYN Smith. As a cyclist and all of the athletic training that you needed to do with that, you were one of the only people in your squad there that could actually crush a walnut with your thighs, right?
Well, and my rear
I'm
end
kidding.
is my selling point. So hopefully this whole radio show will get me a date. So anyway, yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this as an aside. You're from Southern California. You're blonde. How did that go over in Iraq? I mean, to me, with the culture and as a woman turret gunner, I mean, I'm sure you had to kind of get past a lot of problems with the guys in the military, let alone some of the Iraqis there and the locals, no?
So great question. I never had an issue with the men in my unit because if you acted professionally, you received, that sort of enveloping love in your teammates. And what my commander did, super wicked smart guy, he said, you know what, culturally, the Iraqi police who we were working in concert with, they're probably not going to listen to you, so I have an idea. So he gave me their paychecks. So if you want to listen to me, you're going to go out on patrol with me, right, our team. And you're going to not do what you've been doing for the last 60 years, which means show up to the Iraqi police station, grab your paycheck, and bail. You're going to actually start patrolling your cities so that you guys can self-police. And then, oh, by the way, you're going to do it because I told you so because I have your paycheck. So it was actually kind of a brilliant position that he kind of put me in. And, the really unique part that you've already brought up is I was a turret gunner. So I was a 50 assault, a Mark 19 turret gunner. And there was actually three total in our unit that were women. So we're less than one half of a percent of women that were actually in combat.
Told you that was microscopic, ladies and gentlemen.
Unreal.
Hey, Sergeant, I'm going to hit you with a question that you're unprepared for, as you will be for most of the questions that Donna and I ask. Do you know a guy by the name of Johnny Walker?
I do.
There you go. Okay. He's a good buddy
Johnny
of
Walker
ours. Did you meet him after you came back or while you were over there?
I met him after I came back. He is a resident here of San Diego. And for those that don't know who Johnny Walker is, go ahead and give me about 50 push-ups because you should know. Johnny Walker was Chris Kyle's interpreter when they were in Iraq. And he lives here in San Diego now, and such a cool human being. I got to hang out with him last week, matter of fact. We do a lot of barbecues together.
Johnny Walker is a good brother. And ladies and gentlemen, all you got to do is go back through the Cowboy Logic Radio archives. He's been on our show, 2 or 3 times?
He's here, though, because he was an Iraqi interpreter, and he was threatened. So they brought him here to
yeah, he was actually brought into the United States by the SEALs and the Navy.
Yep.
But at any rate, that's a side note. It's a mutual friend of ours and the good sergeant here, and I just wanted to kind of hit you with that curveball and listen for the pregnant pause when you answered. Because I knew you knew him. All right, so now let's move into a rather dark point in your life, and that was
April 15th.
On your last mission, if I'm not incorrect here. Your last mission, you sustained some pretty serious injuries that I'd like for you to share with us.
Yeah, so, when we got to Iraq, just a quick overview, for about the first 6 months, we got hit every single day. We had the second most dangerous patrol sector below Fallujah. So we had from Baghdad up to Taji up in the north, and we had roadside bombings and car bombings and mortar attacks. And September 7th of 2004, my team leader and I, we were dismounted, and the sniper shot him in the face and killed him. And so the IED on April 15th, we literally were redeploying back to Germany. We had lost 2 teammates. We were so ready to go home. And a fuel tanker transport had called into our talk and said, "Hey, look, we need some experienced MPs because it's in the middle of the night. We're we're rolling gas cans, and we really need some security because the drivers had no experience. They just got into Iraq." And so they asked us to go. Of course, we went, and it was about 02 in the morning, going down. And if your listeners are in tune with the Middle East, our go-to-work street was Route Irish, which is also known as Hell's Highway. So in order to go anywhere during the day for us, our fob was right off Hell's Highway. And so we were on Route Irish, and it was about 02 in the morning, and the driver was so it was an MP truck, a fuel truck, my truck, a fuel truck, and then another MP truck behind him. It was all gun trucks for us. And he kept getting closer, and I kept trying to radio him. "No, you don't understand. You need to back off me because when they hit IEDs, they want to get 2 trucks, so you're going to make it really easy for them." And he'd back up so far that he would what's called split the element, and I'd kind of give him some very colorful language to let him know, "No, you can't split the element because then my MP truck behind is going to have to fight it out by themselves because we'll be so far down the road." So I just happened to turn back into my sector, and he got super close, and they ignited a IED that was on a light pole.
Ugh.
So this IED was detonated manually. It was not
They were watching.
tripped,
Yeah, it
correct?
wasn't tripped. They were watching.
Oh, yeah, of course they were watching. And because it's Hell's Highway, if you guys do a little bit more research on Hell's Highway, that's what it is. It is IED Alley. It's a really, really bad place, and I'm not, knocking Fallujah up there, but it's just a different dichotomy of danger. And so when it hit, the only thing that I remember is, holy blank, 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 that's really hot and loud. I'd sucked the blast in, so I got what's called secondary to inhalation, knocked me out, and it actually threw me backwards, but we were lucky because we got the plates around my turret. But what I didn't know at the time is I had a fractured L4, I had a slipped L5, and a herniated L5S1. When I woke up, it was only a couple seconds later, we had a decision to make. We were literally leaving 18 hours later, and we either go to the green zone of the hospital or deal with it back in Germany. We dealt with it back in Germany, which was a bad idea. We should have dealt with it then, but we didn't. When that IED went off, I'll tell you what. So the guy who had hided it, and basically how they sort of epoxy affixed it to the light pole, they assumed I was going to come by and be an average size American male, which is 5'10", and I'm 5'5". So their goal was to just, take my head off and take out that cruiser position. And luckily for me, I'm 5'5". So it caused damage, but it didn't kill me when it really should have. So I was lucky. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for making me short. That saved my life.
Wow.
All right, so let's go back to the fact that this was manually detonated as opposed to triggered by driving over it or triggered by something else. How far was this schmuck that detonated this from you? Do you know?
I don't know. It was about 2:30 in the morning. I'm assuming he was laying in the weeds somewhere and just waiting for us. And, we were a huge target, the fuel tankers. Usually, if we don't have that sort of escort position, because we weren't really escort MPs, we were patrolling MSRs and conducting raids and doing high-threat security detachments and all those things. So typically what would have happened without those fuel tankers, and we'd be burning down that road at, 65 miles an hour if we could be.
Right.
But because we had these fuel tankers, we were at a speed that allowed that person to sit there and watch and wait and wait for the inexperienced fuel driver to do exactly what he did. And he made a mistake. Thank God nobody got killed. But it was pretty bad.
How did you get out of there? I mean, being injured as you were, how did they get you out of there?
I had a medic with me. And we'd all made a decision that, hey, look, I just help me out a little bit, and we'll get back to Germany, and we'll deal with it in Germany, because adrenaline is an amazing thing.
Yeah,
and if you've never been in a fight or flight mode that was really, really, really bad, adrenaline covers a lot of things. So I knew I was hurt, but I also knew I had to go back to Germany. I don't want to stay here anymore. And it wasn't like a cowardly decision. It was just like, let's just get home, man. We'll deal with it. And I didn't realize the implications of doing that and, awards and medical and all that other stuff. But for me, adrenaline was really covering and masking a lot of the things that were going on.
All right. We've only got a few more minutes in this segment before we have to go to a break. Couple of quick questions. How much, with regard to your uniform, your equipment, everything that you had strapped onto your body, when that blast went off, how much additional weight were you carrying? That's the first question. And then I've got a follow-up question of, would you please describe to the listeners in their best ability, and mine too, to understand what that felt like? Are there any analogies you can use to describe the force that hit you, whether it be describe it like a car hitting you, whether it is somebody hitting you with a bat, whatever it might be? But I'm curious on how much additional weight you had strapped onto your body at the time, and then describe what it felt like. And we got about a minute and a half to do that.
So I had about 52 pounds of gear strapped on between my ammo, my ballistic plates, and all the other stuff. And consider placing a shotgun in your mouth and then pulling the trigger and coming out of it while you're in your oven set at probably 920 degrees at the least, and then sit there in it inside of the concussion zone, because you have concussion issues, you have sound issues, you have heat issues. It was literally like a shotgun blast to the face, but that had fire. It was a fireball, and it's so weird because when you talk about it, I could still feel that fire hitting the back of my throat. And I just recognized, the only thing I recognized for that second was, this is how I'm going. And then the last thing I remember is my driver, he's screaming at me. And, like I said, I was only knocked out for a couple seconds, but I remember him saying, screaming my name and wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, just to make sure I was still all connected. And so luckily I was, but that's kind of how it feels. Sit around with a shotgun inside of your oven and enjoy.
Unbelievable. And what if you had not had the body plates on?
Well, I was lucky because I was short, so it's called name tape defilade. So basically, the only exposure that I had was really from my quote unquote my breastplate up. So because they had hided it the way they did, it was really just the force that's from my shoulders and head and stuff like that. So that's where the TBI and the injuries and stuff are kind of a little bit exasperated. So if I was a 5'9", 5'10" male, I would have, I probably wouldn't have made it out.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
We're talking with KAROLYN Smith, a turret gunner and a war hero in my book. And then we're going to come back after the break talking about Sophia, the Bionic Cat. It's a book she wrote. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and find it at 3pawsup.com. But we're going to learn about Sophia. And yes, she was hit, KAROLYN, not Sophia, but KAROLYN was hit with an IED, but the VA said it was an IUD. All you women out there can relate to that one. It has nothing to do with war. We're going to come back and have that all explained to us by KAROLYN Smith right after the break, right here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire.
Hi, this is Donna Fiducia, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio. For 28 years, I was in the mainstream media, most recently as an anchor at the Fox News Channel. No more. Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media has completely failed the American people. Radio networks like Talk America Radio will not fail you. Radio shows like Cowboy Logic Radio will not fail you. Check out the entire roster of over 60 weekly radio shows by visiting talkamericaradio.us. That's talkamericaradio.us.
TalkAmericaRadio.us.
Can we do it again? I like it.
This is Don Neuen, co-host of the Drive Time Sit Rep. Join me as I call in to my intel analyst, Denise Simon, for my daily situation report, or Sit Rep, the Drive Time Sit Rep. Check talkamericaradio.us for more information and show times.
Hey, everybody, they're back on again.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glares. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
We're back talking with KAROLYN Smith, a turret gunner, combat deployed in Iraq, and she sustained very serious injuries to her back, her hearing, burned sinuses and lungs. I mean, this was just the last mission before heading back, and unfortunately, carrying 52 pounds a year, I should say, did actually help. Not unfortunately, because she's only 5'5". She was explaining just before the break how that probably saved her life, and she elaborated on that. But KAROLYN, Don has got a question for you before we get started about Sophia.
Actually, what I was doing, Donna, is I was gyrating through the I'm Don Neuen moment,
Yes.
so that I was being a mime. I was being a Don Neuen mime.
I sometimes
so that the
wish we
listeners
could
didn't
be
have
on-
to endure that.
If we were on the Liberty Eagle on Facebook, everybody wouldn't have been able
with
to
the
see
video?
exactly
I
what
don't
he
think
was
so.
doing. But
All
I
right,
don't know
so-
if you want to see that.
All right, so, Sergeant, questions for you here. We're going to move into something that I don't think very many people understand the wide range effects of, and that's PTSD. I don't know about anybody that's listening, but if I experienced seeing and witnessing some of the things that Sergeant Smith saw and witnessed, and then not only endured herself, I could not help but be affected. It's just inevitable. And many of our combat warrior heroes have come back from serving and are struggling in many, many different ways. And it's a very complex thing. Am I not right, Sergeant?
Yeah, you are. You know, what they don't tell you about PTSD is the why and the how. So if your listeners can imagine a cup in your head, and your cup is your adrenaline. And once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times in people's lives, you'll have what's called an adrenaline dump. That's when your child runs out in the street, almost falls in the pool. You may have almost been in a horrific accident, and you have that fight or flight response that dumps your adrenaline and helps you. You either freeze or you fight, right? So imagine having that experience every single day, probably 15, 20 dumps a day, 30 dumps a day for 365 days. So what PTSD really is the cup of adrenaline that's in your head that is really like maybe a millimeter full of, regular adrenaline. So you can get out of bed in the morning and, do regular stuff. Mine and those who have PTSD is overflowing. And so what ends up happening is everything is auto-responded because your body and your brain are like, you are a badass like this. We are going to keep you at this level because we want to keep you safe, because we know what happens if the levels dump too low. We don't like that. We want to be always safe, always alert, always hyper-aggressive, hyper-aware, hypersensitive every time because, geez, look, you went through combat and we brought you home. And that's really what the granular side of PTSD is. And so you can't really undo that until you really get into, talking about chemical imbalances in the brain, and then cognitive behavior issues. For me, consider this. If you're a dude and you come back from war, or maybe you're a first responder, police officer, it is super sexy and super hot that you're, hyper aggressive and hyper aware, and that's really super cool. But if you're a woman and have that same personality, people are really scared of you. They call you every name in the book. You're crazy. You're all of these things. And you're like, but it's not me, it's you. I'm behaving the way that I know how to behave because I've just been through Mortal Kombat and I'm coming home now. And so one day you're in Mortal Kombat and the next day you're in sunny San Diego, and, they don't, the transitional process, and I'm not really a feminist or anything, but the transitional process for women is really more difficult because there's 10,000 things they don't tell you. They don't tell you that you're going to have the most dysfunctional relationships on the planet. So if you're a female police officer and you're listening in, or a female, a veteran, and you're listening in, you'll understand. Have you been through 10, 15, cyclical relationships that burn and crash and all those things? You probably have. And what happens is my family's like, hey, don't bring any guy home now to meet us until like you're really, serious about the guy. And for me, my professional career transitioning out of active service is phenomenal. My personal private life was a total train wreck, but nobody stopped to say, hey, you're a train wreck. They just didn't say anything. And so PTSD for me was quite complex because not only had I seen my lieutenant shot in the face and killed right next to me, and that was September of 2004, I got back in the turret, and I didn't leave until April of 2005. So I had to learn things that by genetic design, I wasn't designed to do. I had to learn how to compartmentalize. I had to completely switch off every feeling I had. So if you fast forward it after I got home, where the heck is the switch on button to turn those things back on so you can be a great female, all the cool stuff about being a girl? Where's all that at? And nobody tells you where that button's at because nobody knows where to find it. And so I went through serious PTSD. I isolated. I would sleep in my walk-in closet because it had no windows, because we get attacked a lot at night. It was pretty vicious. And it seemed reasonable and logical to me.
Yeah, we had a friend here whose husband slept with his gun under his pillow for years. Same exact thing. I assume you address this stuff. You're an author as well as a speaker, KAROLYN Smith. I assume you address this when you do speak to groups as well.
Yeah, I was really fortunate that the very first paid speaking was with Raytheon here in San Diego, which are huge supporters of the military, and it's so cathartic. And I never thought, oh, geez, I'm going to go be a public speaker. I never thought that was going to happen. But it's so cathartic to be able to be vulnerable and tell your story, because when people come back up to me and they're emotional, it triggers emotions that I have a hard time, toggling that switch and getting those emotions back. So it's sort of like, it's a healing process that I didn't realize was going to be part of my process.
Sergeant, you mentioned in the first segment that your unit, your MP unit, dated back to Vietnam, correct?
Correct. The brigade did, yes.
Okay. The guys like my uncle that served in Korea and Vietnam, they came back and they clearly were suffering from PTSD. The problem is, back then, nobody knew what it was.
And vilified.
I don't think I even heard the term. Now, granted, the term probably existed and the diagnosis probably existed well before I heard about it. But back in the 60s and the 70s, I don't think anybody was talking about this. And how, if you have knowledge of this, what happened to those guys that suffered and came back to the United States and tried to gain a normalcy in their life after being in combat when nobody was talking about PTSD back in the 60s and the 70s?
Yeah, well, perfect example is my father. My father was a door gunner in the Army and in Vietnam. And when I was a child, the really big things here in San Diego is going to, say, like the Del Mar Fair. And all of my friends got to go, and my family would never go and take us because it was kind of a big family event. And I didn't realize it's because my dad could not be in crowds, and he never articulated that. And my father was really overprotective. And, I was not allowed, my sister and I were not allowed to date until we were out of high school. And all of these really weird behaviors that were not articulated in the family. So we didn't even know what was going on. And that was sort of our new normal. And the problem with that is that, I didn't know how to make friends as a child. I was not allowed to have friends at the house. Dad didn't want strange phone calls. Dad didn't want, people he didn't know over at the house. And so, I'm kind of socially awkward, as I get older and try and make friends. It's really weird for me. And so, one day I had gone to the VA here in San Diego for my own treatment. And this guy, he was on the corner and he was chatting with himself. And I was just sitting there listening to what he was chatting about, because I was always afraid when I was younger and you'd see somebody on the street chatting with themselves. But this person was a veteran, and I listened. And what he was doing was replaying the scenario of something, of an event when he deployed that he was trying to change the outcome of. And he kept saying, God, why didn't you just move, man? Why didn't you I told you not to go over there, and trying to recreate the ending. And so it changed the understanding of those people. When I kind of look back and you were scared of those people are doing something very similar that I had started to do in the depths of my own PTSD. When my lieutenant was killed, I was actually the driver that day, because we kind of swap out every now and then for complacency issues. And I was driving and I was like, God, what about if I just move 2 feet forward or 2 feet back? And then I realized I'm doing the exact same thing that those people on the street, when I was a kid, I'm doing the exact same thing that they're doing. I'm trying to recreate the ending.
Wow.
So
thank you for answering that.
Yeah, and it's got to be rough. I know you said the relationships with your family even changed. Even your mom said she wants the old KAROLYN back. I mean, how do you deal with that?
You know what? I have to. I think the hardest part is the family. Right. Last year, my mom had asked, "Hey, you want to go to Costco?" I hate crowds, which is the irony. And so, I went out and went shopping with her, and there was a woman in line, and she was complaining about the weather, and it was like 101 degrees. And I'm sitting there in line as we're about to check out. And I'm like, "Oh my God, lady, it was 142 degrees in the Middle East. This is not bad. You can go out to your SUV and flip on your AC. Things we didn't get to do. Shut up." And apparently I turned around and told her exactly how I was going to end her life, because she just wouldn't shut up. And I turned around and my mom was crying. And so my mom was afraid of the things inside me that she was not aware of. And to be quite honest, my family really didn't ask me about my deployment. And about, a couple months later, we went out together again. And we're in this really busy aisle of the store, and there's people around. She turns around. She said, "Have you ever killed anybody?" And mind you, this is 2016, and I hadn't been in the Middle East since, well, it's not true, I was contracting, but Iraq since 2005. And I was like, "Well, yeah, but they were all bad." And she starts wailing and crying, and I was like, "How did this not dawn on you? Like, what did you think I did? Do you think I was supply or back in the rear?" Which those are all great jobs, but what did you think? Like, and it's very hard. So my mom will say, "You know what? I can't wait till the old you comes back." And I'm like, "You know what? This knee got me home to you, so that should be enough, right, Mom?" And it's not. It's very hard. If I was a boy, they would be like, "This is my son," but it's different for me. It's different for them, and whatever their inadequacies, failures, or whatever it is, it kind of gets pushed on me, and it's difficult. It's a strained relationship, because I'm still an overachiever outside of the military, and once I got through my by seriously severe PTSD, by PTSD counseling. My injuries were so bad, they didn't know how to deal with me. I was not a pleasant person to be around, but, it was a horrible time. For about 9-10 years, it was just, I was in such catastrophic pain, and I don't know if you want to talk about the VA side yet, but
yeah, for me, but I actually think we need to do a whole nother show just about women in the military versus men, but that's another story. The VA, and don't get me started on John McCain. I'm sorry. Here he is, life-threatening illnesses, and he can go to the Mayo Clinic, and then he votes for all of us to still keep Obamacare, which is essentially the VA. So you go to the VA, and they say you have a problem with an IUD, not an IED. I mean, this is unbelievable to me.
So for 6 years in my med files, it said I was blown up by an IUD. And
which wait a minute. I don't know a whole lot about IUDs, but is it even, I guess it could be possible that one could explode. Maybe.
I don't know, but if you get the same visual that I do every time somebody talks about this, it's funny now, but when I would go to the VA and I'd try and get, my treatment, they would say, well, women aren't in combat, so why don't you tell us what really happened, sweetie? And he'd be like, you know what, I could murder you right now, but I don't want to be in prison, so I'm not going to do that. Why don't you read the file?
So it took really 6 years. It took 6 years for them to correct the difference between an IUD and an IED?
Yep. and not only
so
that.
Doomed with our health care.
Here's what granulally happened. So what they did was they knew I had a fractured, herniated, and slipped lower spine. And they had known it since 2006 when I had gone into was technically 2005. And so what they did was they did radiofrequency ablations. They maxed out my cortisone injections, which made disc degeneration happen quicker. And then in their infinite wisdom in 2010, they just put me on high-dose opioids and left me on them for 4.5 years. That's what they did to me.
That's a whole nother story, too. Opioid addiction is becoming a huge problem in this country, probably starting with many veterans. We don't even talk about that at all. But you know what, Carolyn Smith, I do want to get to that if we get some time, but I want to get to your little savior, your bionic cat. And that, to me, is just amazing. I guess you're on a million meow mission. That PSA that we heard at the beginning was from Fresh Step Cat Litter and Clorox brands. The San Diego Humane Society actually, I guess, delivered this little sweetheart to you.
Right. So I was actually, I was lucky. I got into a program at UCLA, and we'll talk about that. And I got some really advanced medical care inside of my spine. And at the same time, I just happened to get on my Facebook, and this face comes, this kitten's face. And I love dogs, but I was like, oh, my God, look at that face. That's amazing. And they're like, well, she and her battle buddy are up for adoption. And you had told the story already about her and her life. And I was like, oh, I must have. So I go into the Humane Society, and they had actually just seen me on TV because I had gotten Veteran of the Year. And so they sort of already knew who I was. And they said, you know what, this is a great story. Disabled veteran adopts disabled kitten. We love this story. Let's do a PSA commercial. It was one hero of the Million Meow missions, and it went from there. And then when I picked Sophia up, they're like, hey, she comes with a problem. She's an amputee. And I'm like, I have friends that are amputees. That's not a problem. And so when I took her home, her and Leonidas, her boyfriend, it's the best relationship in the house currently. It's the longest relationship in the house. And it's just so interesting that her story of struggle really was my own. And her persevering and overcoming really was my own, right? So we had very similar stories. And then online, People Magazine picked up this story from that PSA commercial. And so the PSA was disabled veteran adopts disabled kitten, but People Magazine flipped it and they said disabled kitten adopts disabled veteran. And then it went from there. And my whole thing was, structurally, she was going to have an issue when she got a little bit older, because I understood, because I had my own structural issues with my spinal injury. And I was like, you know what, I know what I'm going to do. Let's go make her a prototype prosthetic, because there's nobody on the planet who's ever done that. So I teamed up with Fab Lab, which is a volunteer tech lab here in San Diego, and created the first ever detachable 3D printed prosthetic for a cat. And every time I'd go into the lab, parents would be there and people working on their own projects, and their kids would be there, and they kept asking about the story. And I'm like, God, I don't want to keep repeating the story, but I do. How do I do this? I'm like, I'm going to make a children's book, which is ironic because I don't have any kids. So I made this children's book, and it's called Sophia the Bionic Cat. And from there, I started writing the screenplay for it. I'm like, geez, I'm an overachiever. Let's see if we can turn this into a big movie, kind of rivaling Dolphin Tales, if you remember that true story from Universal Pictures, a decade or so ago.
Well, there's something else that's fascinating about the book that you wrote, and that is you wrote it in basically 2 languages, right?
Right. So I have a TBI. It's a mild brain injury from being knocked out one too many times from IEDs. And so my mentor, who was helping me put this book together, he'd called me up one day and he said, you know what? I found a guy who created a brand new font, and it's called Open Dyslexic. So if you have dyslexia, you're going to read the book the way that I wrote it, not the way dyslexic brains choose to read things. And I thought, you know what? So we are the very first children's book who has this brand new font. And when I get tired, I noticed that the brain injury for me makes it a little bit harder for me to read, and math is really difficult sometimes. And so I wanted to bring in as much conversation into this one little children's book, this true story, that I could while making it as uplifting as possible and telling a great story.
That's awesome.
Sophia is such a pretty cat.
And how old is Sophia now?
Sophia is 3, so we really had to wait until she grew some size on her because prototype prosthetics are about $1,500 per exercise, and we were up to 4 already, and so it was getting a little bit out of pocket expensive.
But the book is Sophia the Bionic Cat. You can find it at 3pawsup.com. Again, the author,
that's the number
KAROLYN
3.
Smith, number 3.
pawsup.com.
Again, she's going to start a nonprofit organization, 501c3.
She has it.
Oh, okay.
She has it.
Animal Planet and everything had this on. But Don had another question.
Yeah, I got to tell you something that another thing we share in common outside of a friendship with Johnny Walker. When I was a young kid, and I'm guessing probably 12, 13 years old, I had a 3-legged cat too.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. And we named him Tripod.
I had a one-eyed
But I'm going to tell you something. He never had a problem. He got around, did exactly what he needed to do, played around with the other animals that we had. But, I, too, had a 3-legged cat named Tripod.
I had a one-eyed cat.
Look at you.
We named her Sandy after Sandy Duncan. I swear to God.
Well, we've got a one-eyed horse now, too. He's like a one-winged angel, walks around in a circle. All right, so... Listen, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I want to, ladies and gentlemen, again, the number 3, paws, PAWS, up.com, 3paws.com. Sophia the Bionic Cat. Go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, 3pawsup.com, wherever you want. And I'm going to throw in a little extra here. If you pay $5 more for the book, I will have Sergeant KAROLYN Smith and myself, Don Neuen, sign and autograph this book for you. So $5 more, and that will help go towards some of the treatment we need for Sophia.
It does this with all the authors we have on.
Regardless of who they are. Now, in the last minute that we've got here, and I hate to chop this so short, I have been on a rant for the past number of years, I'll leave it at that, about ROEs, rules of engagement, in which this goes all the way back to the Bush administration. Heck, it goes back to the Vietnam War, probably goes back to the Korean War. Within 1 minute, if I give you just that amount of time, can you express your views on rules of engagement?
Sure. So it actually started late 2004, early 2005, the change where you had to skip around before engaging somebody who was a threat, right? So if somebody's a threat, they're lifting their weapon, you actually have to skip around off the pavement or wherever before you can actually go and kill them because they're about to kill you. That stemmed from, there was an Italian reporter who was in a cab in Baghdad in 2004 time, who was, the driver was a male, she was a female, and the driver was not paying attention to a checkpoint that they were about to go through, an army checkpoint. He didn't pay attention. They ended up, the Army unit ended up shooting the cab, killing the driver. And the lady, she was an Italian reporter, she got so mad thinking that she was personally targeted, she went up and helped assist changing the rules of engagement to where you now had to skip around because it could have saved her cab driver's life, which that's not the actuality. Rules of engagement are a hamstring to those who are actually there. So you got to wait till hopefully I don't get killed so I can kill you back. It's a horrid position to be in. So hopefully our new commander-in-chief will understand that, hey, if you're going to raise a weapon to me, I'm going to ask you questions later. I'm going to engage you and talk to you later if you made it through. Good luck to you. You shouldn't have done that.
Better be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
I am sickened by him.
Right.
And before we leave you guys tonight, because we have to go, I have one suggestion for Donald Trump, and I have one suggestion for every listener that's listening to this show. You need to send the word to Washington, D.C., that if a member of our military is threatened, the only action needed is to exterminate the threat. Period. No questions asked. Take care of the job. Donna, we have to go.
Absolutely. KAROLYN Smith, again, find her, folks. Again, she's a author and a speaker, 2014 Veteran of the Year, and we certainly salute all of your service here to the country. But better yet, what's going on with the help of your little kitten there, Sophia, and the three-legged cat, and the 3pawsup.com is the website. That's the number 3, 3pawsup.com. The book, Sophia the Bionic Cat. Again, folks, you read her in People magazine, and Animal Planet even had her on. It's just awesome. It's a great story. Find the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or go to 3pawsup.com. KAROLYN Smith, again, thank you. It's a wonderful story. Be safe, and thank you again for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hey, thanks, you too, and keep doing amazing things. If you go to www.3pawsup.com, you're going to hear about our brand new nonprofit.
Absolutely. And folks, that winds up another Cowboy Logic for this week, and we will see you guys next Tuesday. In the meantime, God bless America.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.